nurse at nurses at Walter Reed Hospital who would bend down and whisper in my ear and go home and get me pillows. They would make sure they'd actually, probably nothing ever taught in, you can't do it in the COVID time, but they'd actually breathe in my nostrils to make me move, to get me moving.
Welcome to the Buffed Up American Adversaries podcast. Glad to be with you. I'm your host, Matt Buff, from The Buff Show on 94.9 FM, which you can, and AM 950, which you can hear on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, and on the American Adversaries Radio Network, which you can hear Monday or Sunday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 94.9 AM. 94.9 FM, AM 950, The Answer Orlando. I am very fortunate to be back in studio and joined by the philosopher and the political mad scientist, Christopher Hart. Man, good to see you again.
Good to see you again, Matt, as well.
Oh, we got a great show for you. It's been a few weeks, and we're glad to be back in studio together.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, you had to take care of a little family stuff, which is great to be able to do this, especially during these circumstances.
Yes, we do what we can in these strange times.
That's right. But
got a little baseball in.
That's right, and what a great time to be spending with the kids.
Oh, it is. And, you know, when you talk about kids and the baseball and
and
school,
outside the house, I might add.
That's what I was about to say. They get to get outside of the house when they go to school and baseball and stuff like that.
Right.
But I want to start off the show today because we have this miraculous story that happened that we heard about this week for the first time. And, you know, there's a man named Joe Biden. He's laying in a hospital bed in Walter Reed, and he's got nurses whispering in his ear.
Sweet nothings.
Sweet nothings. And then they go to his house and they get him pillows. Not my pillows, but pillows.
Right.
Biden pillows. And then they breathe life into his nostrils. Does that story sound familiar? And the evening and the morning was the first day? Unbelievable. Let there be life. Joe Biden lives.
You think after, what was it, popcorn or whatever that, the
Corn pop.
Corn pop. Yeah, you think after corn pop story that, you know, you'd heard it all with Joe Biden. But yeah, this strange video of him doing a remote conversation, not with Barack Obama, but with a nurse, a woman who happens to be black. And as liberals do, but he does so very clumsily, he was trying to endear himself to the person he was talking to and to the audience, of course. And he thinks the way to endear himself is to tell these little vignettes of his life, which are supposed to be intimate, you know, awe-inspiring moments. And yet when they come out of his mouth, they sound very bizarre.
Not only bizarre and a little bit untrue, maybe. Who breathes in the nostrils?
Only somebody who wants to maybe try to kill you. It's actually very dangerous.
It is.
As a matter of fact, a part of the problem with, which is why in many cases now, when they want you to perform CPR, they just want you to do the heartbeat. Okay?
Right. That's the newer thing of the last 10 years.
It used to be that they want you to tilt your head back, pinch your nose, breathe into the mouth.
Yes.
And if somebody's not breathing, you want to try to clear the throat so that they can breathe, but then start pumping on their chest. And the reason for that is many of the people who would be revived by breathing into their mouth would get pneumonia, okay? Because you're not supposed to breathe into somebody else directly like that. So you might save the person's life, but temporarily, because they would get pneumonia from the life-saving technique. That's why you're not supposed to do that anymore when you perform CPR. You're not supposed to breathe into somebody unless it's absolutely necessary, because you may be giving them pneumonia in the process. And if you don't have to do that, you could be, you know, causing a complication, maybe even death unnecessarily. So,
well, that nurse you talked about, she has a very tough job. And you remember that TV show where they try to make people laugh, and the longer you keep a straight face,
right,
you win a prize?
Yeah.
They kind of do that with Joe Biden. It's very tough to sit in an interview.
You had to feel for her because she was like sitting there, you know, you can wonder what she's thinking, but she's going, yeah.
This sounds like total bullshit.
Yeah.
I just got to go with it.
But once again, this is why we say, and why I say the Democrats understand this much better than Republicans, that politics is like professional wrestling. That was a little bit. That was a little skit. That was a little, let's make the emotional connection thing, you see. There was nothing,
biblical and emotional a little bit.
But exactly. They're trying to make that very personal, deep, emotional connection. They've got nothing rational or logical to base their campaign on. It's all emotion, but they know how to manipulate it very well. But unfortunately for Biden, he's very clumsy at it. So that's why they're making this election all about Donald Trump.
Well, they have to. And
that's the only way they can win.
I mean, there's a lot we can talk about that's been done when we talk about what's going on in the major cities, the Democrat-run cities, how there's there's elected officials out in the street with the protesters. We got to get into that Portland matter. That's why we have the spike in Florida.
But see, the interesting thing is all of this, they turn around and blame it on Donald Trump.
Every bit of it.
You know, he is the villain. Once again, what makes pro wrestling work, what makes politics so emotional, is it's right down at the very base level of our nature. The battle between good and evil, which goes on inside all of us. You know, those little voices that you hear, those, do it, don't do it, do it, don't do it. You know, that's good and evil going on right inside of us. And so it plays out in a much larger way in society, and the Democrats know how to work within that. Republicans don't appreciate it. They think that, oh, why don't you just see our success? Why don't you see the numbers? Can't you understand this, that? And when you're up against emotion, rationality is going to take a back seat every time. And Trump understands this. And he used that dynamic very effectively in 2016 and was using it very effectively up until the Wuhan flu bug hit.
Well, go back to that professional wrestling and politics. We can give you stories on how both are the same, and I want to break that down even more. In professional wrestling, when you're talking about a bad guy, they don't immediately have the bad guy wrestle the good guy. They build up a storyline.
Sure.
They have him set the good guy's car on fire. He goes in the hospital bed and hits him with a bedpan.
Or better yet, his wife or brother or something.
Yeah,
right?
They go after their family or the wife or something like that.
Exactly.
They build up, and then they have the big match where they've hopefully destroyed this guy's reputation so bad that the crowd is all against him.
That's right.
Now,
and that's the crescendo.
Yes. Now go to this, what we're talking about with the Wuhan flu and the opening the schools and the riots in the streets and the defunding the cops. All of this is a build-up the same way. And like you just said, Chris, all this is being pinned on what they consider the bad guy, President Donald J. Trump.
Right. And WrestleMania, if you will, is November the 3rd.
Yes, sir.
Right? And that's when the hoedown is going to go down. And it's going to be a big deal. And it is, because this is, and we've been saying this on our radio shows for quite some time now, but now you're hearing it more and more. This is the election of all elections. We have not had an election with this divisive of an electorate since 1860. Okay, and imagine what happened after that. And also imagine what we've talked about in some of our past podcasts, this book called Generations, talking about these 80-year consequential events in American history, which are wrapped in and around events that are chaotic. And you had the Revolutionary War, then you had the Civil War, then you had World War II, all on 80-year intervals, and here we are again.
If you want to hear that fantastic series that Chris and I did, that was a 5-parter we did.
Yeah.
And you can go to AmericanAdversaries.com and just click on that YouTube link. All those shows are right there on the YouTube link right there.
That's right.
I just, when you're talking about that, we had so much fun recording that. And when you talk about the 80-year increments that we talked about in there, it was amazing. There was fact-based, world-changing events that were happening.
Right. And that's what this cancel culture is all about. So maybe we should take a break and come back and pick it up from there.
As you can see, we have a whole lot more to cover. I mean, there is so much we're going to cover for you on this show. Visit appealslawgroup.com, all right? If you're facing an appeal situation and you've been convicted of something and you know you have a good case for an appeal, or you want somebody good on your side, appealslawgroup.com. That's where Chris and I are broadcasting from today. Stay with us. You like the new name? Buffed Up American Adversaries Podcast, where the Buff Show and the American Adversaries Show collide. Oh. Boom! We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Action Plus Pressure Cleaning is the official pressure washing company of The Buff Show. While Matt's doing the dirty work on the show, Action Plus Pressure Washing has been doing the dirty work for the last 15 years in Central Florida. They use a soft wash system to clean pool enclosures, driveways, pool decks, houses, and commercial property. They even clean large and small parking lots and buildings. Wow! Action Plus offers other services such as lawn maintenance, one-time service to weekly service, mowing, weeding, edging, and trimming, and hauling away debris. You can get more than one service, and they offer bundle pricing. Check out their weekly, bi-weekly, and monthly services for lawn maintenance and ask about their free standard 2 driveway with house wash services. Family owned and operated. Get your free estimate at actionpluspressurecleaning.com or call 386-506-1048. That's 386-506-1048. Action Plus Pressure Cleaning. They aim to please.
Welcome back to the Buffed Up American Adversaries podcast. Right here in the Appeals Law Group studio. Matt Buff and Christopher Hart with you.
That's right.
You know, Chris, they're canceling a lot of things, like they're trying to get rid of Gone with the Wind, and they're taking the guns from Elmer Fudd. And,
Don't forget master bedrooms.
yeah, and Cops. You don't even need to watch Cops anymore. It's on TV every night anyway.
Yeah.
But you know what they left alone? Blazing Saddles. Don't tell anybody, but Blazing Saddles is still out there.
I guess because that was made by a bunch of liberals in Hollywood, they get away with it, right?
It was. Where are the white women at? Great movie, Blazing Saddles. And you can still see it on. It's funny. It's not listed in the black section of Amazon when the black movies, but it's like right underneath it in comedy.
Comedy, all right.
It's very good. But the cancel culture, we joke about it, Chris. But my God, that Columbus statue came down in Chicago last night.
Right. You know, when the last segment we talked about the strange little back and forth between Joe Biden and the nurse, where he's talking about people breathing into his nose and stuff. He's trying to identify with that culture, right? That was a feeble attempt to do so.
Yes.
Made sure that it was a woman nurse and a woman of color nurse. Woman happened to be black. And this is all about trying to connect with that element, right? But that element is very dangerous. And this is what we've been talking about since we started doing these podcasts, ladies and gentlemen. We've been talking about how we're under siege from without by the Chinese, and we'll get to that a little bit later, and from within. And we now clearly see these voices. These riots and things weren't going on when we started these podcasts.
No, they were
But
not.
we talked about how the Democrats and the left were manipulating events using the coronavirus here in the United States to cause problems, say for President Trump and the economy.
We even mentioned how there could be violence in the streets.
Exactly.
We said that.
Exactly. And this cancel culture is all about taking advantage of that. I think we even talked about the Great Reset, right, on the World Economic Forum website, where they're talking about using this corona epidemic in order to shift the world further to the left towards socialism. That's the bottom line. They wrap it up in global climate change and all these other things, but the real change is from a free market economy to a socialist economy.
Well, when you take like climate change and things like wearing masks or just anything up and down the system, what do those things all have in common? It's control, and that's part of the socialist agenda.
And that's what cancel culture is all about.
Yes.
It's all about controlling us by controlling our history to begin with. It's not about revealing, studying, or knowing our history. It's about taking control of it in order to alter it. Okay? And that's part of why they're pulling down these statues. Very organized. What you have is Antifa and Black Lives Matter work in a very organized fashion, and what they do is they have, say in Baltimore, they want to pull down the Columbus statue like they did a few weeks ago. They'll have, for that event, they'll use the social media to gin up the people to come, but of the people who come, only a small handful will actually be BLM Antifa operatives, and they're like the fuse or the igniter, okay, and the rest of the people are what they're trying to ignite. And they're usually the organizers, and they may be taking the front, but they try to actually lay back and not take the front in this.
Now, are these the same guys, the ones you're talking about, the agitators, BLM and Antifa, are they the ones dumping the bottles of ice water and
Not necessarily.
Giving the weapons to the people
Not necessarily.
So is there a third group?
What they do is they get the useful idiots to do these things for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. It's like I'm one of these organizers. I come to you and I go, Matt, this is what we need you to do. Okay. And here's what you're going to find what you need, or this is how you can do it. Okay. That's how it works. And then they leave it up to you to go out and get the other stooges to do it. And there's plenty of other stooges sitting around right now willing to do it. And here's the problem. It's all about emotion. So they don't really understand, most of these people in the streets doing the actual rioting and looting, what they're doing it for.
But it's a very emotional event. They feel like they're part of something.
Exactly. And once again, this is the Jim Jones technique of mind control. Get somebody to bend a knee. Next thing you can do is you can get them to carry a sign, get them to march in the street. Next thing you can do is get them to shouting epithets at police. Next thing you get them to do is throwing bottles at police. It's an escalation. You don't start with burning buildings down. You start with bending knees. You start with carrying signs.
At the very beginning of this protest, we saw a lot of bending knees.
Right.
Remember in Congress where they're wearing the African garb, which pissed a lot of Africans off, by the way.
Yeah, because they were wearing garb of tribes in Africa that enslaved them. Here's the odd thing about
that was a great point.
Here's the irony about the cancel culture. See, they really have everything upside down or backwards or inside out, however you want to put it.
Right.
All right. First of all, every black American in this country that has an ancestor who was a slave should thank whoever brought that person here or whatever, should thank the process. What am I saying? Am I a racist? No. What I'm saying is if you have an ancestor who was a slave, you would not exist if that ancestor had not been a slave. And also I will say this, that if you look in the world today, where does slavery still exist? And it exists in large numbers. The UN predicts tens of millions of people in the world today are in slavery. Where are they?
Africa and China.
Exactly. Asia, Africa, and Muslim countries.
Yes.
Or Muslim, however you want to say it.
Muslim.
That's right.
Yes.
Muslim, Africa, Asia.
Yep.
You better thank your Lord God that you live in white supremacy. Because it's white supremacy that freed you, freed your ancestors. It is the Western civilization that stops slavery. And it's the Declaration of Independence that gives it the moral authority, because what does it say in the Declaration of Independence? That we are all created equal. Nobody else recognized that. White supremacists did. You better thank your lucky stars for it, if that's what you want to call it.
But if those Asian countries and Muslim countries are still promoting and having slavery, you saw the video this week from China, putting them on trains,
blindfolded
and handcuffed.
Or tied.
That's slavery, people. If that's happening, then why is the New York Times putting out Chinese propaganda? Why are the Democrats in 1964 going against the Civil Rights Act? Why did it take a Republican president to end slavery? Why are projects built and abortion clinics set up in black communities to get rid of these people? Why today is AOC on the floor saying you don't pay your rent, don't go to work, we will take care? Why is it still happening today, Chris?
And why is the NBA kissing Chinese premier's ass? Because they don't understand what they're doing. That is at least a generous way to look at it. Let's hope they don't understand, but that's what the point is here. It's all emotion. You see? They believe this crap, this 1619 project and all this.
The Lincoln Project.
Yeah, all of this
garbage.
crap.
Yes.
It's crap. It's fake news. It's bullshit. It's whatever you want to call it. It's not the truth, which is why they have to tear the truth literally down. This is the same thing ISIS did in Iraq and Syria, and it's the same thing the Taliban did in Afghanistan.
It's slavery.
It's slavery, and it's changing history by controlling it.
Now that we got you worked up, we even have more to come on the Buffed Up American Adversaries podcast.